Part 130. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1300. Latest website. Lu Feng was speechless by her question, and became a little angry and said, "What does my family's affairs have to do with you? Aren't you doing this just to get into this family? Bah! If this home is your private kingdom, then I won't mind going in." Su Yorong cursed into the phone, "Since you can't control yourself, please be a loner. You have no privileges here. We also don't accept your hidden rules for rich people." Su Yorong immediately hung up the phone after speaking. Zhang Xiaoyan and Zhang Fengxia moved overnight to the villa Zhang Xiaoyan bought before. Duo didn't know what happened, why they had to move suddenly. "Mom, what happened?" Duo asked. "Kid, don't ask too much. Go back to the house and go to bed. You will go to school as usual tomorrow." Zhang Xiaoyan sent her back to the house to sleep. Duo couldn't get the answer and went back to the room a little annoyed. The children all went to bed. Zhang Xiaoyan and Zhang Fengxia couldn't sleep. They looked at each other and felt uncomfortable. When will the noisy days end? Maybe Su Yorong was right and needed to make a scene to let him know that these women were not easy to mess with. Maybe she was wrong. They had never taken these women to heart. In his heart, he was different from those outside. There is no difference between the beautiful women. Today there is no Sun Yang, but tomorrow there will still be a third sister. The two of them agreed to Su Yorong out of anger, just to see how much weight they had in Lu Feng's heart. In a relationship, when material things have reached their peak, the next step is love. To love or not to love is a choice that often exists at this moment. Throughout the ages, women have used this method to prove their love. Lu Feng was lying on the bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. He went downstairs and turned on the light and saw that it was already 2 o'clock in the middle of the night on the clock on the wall. The empty home made him upset. I picked up my cell phone from the coffee table and called Zhang Xiaoyan, but no one answered. I called Zhang Fengxia again, but no one answered. Hold. Lu Feng cursed and smashed his phone. Do it. Just do it with all your strength. He cursed a few words and became depressed again. He felt that he was also at fault. Maybe he should adjust his mentality and face his family and responsibilities. Unable to sleep, she wandered around the house, walked to Duo's room, saw that the lamp was still on, and sat in her seat staring blankly out of the dark window. He casually opened the drawer and found a notepad inside. Lu Feng thought it was a lyric book, but when he opened it, he discovered that it was a diary. Lu Feng looked through it carefully. The earliest one was from March 1995. It said that my father was not here, my mother had not returned from the factory, and I didn't know where to go. The intervals between diaries are relatively long, and most of them record her boredom alone. The rest are some things in school and her inner thoughts to her mother. The most recent article was a few months ago. Duo wrote in her diary that Aunt Su came to the house and she had an extra sister. She was not dissatisfied, but was happy because there were more people in the family, and the adults' faces were full of joy. Smile instead of being away from home all day. Lu Feng felt melancholy when he saw it. He closed the diary and put it back to its original position. Maybe he really gave too little to this family. Over the years, he has been saying that he can't wait any longer, but he has always been busy. The company is developing rapidly. If he wants to catch up with the international first-tier manufacturers in a short period of time, the time and energy required will be several times that of others. The night was already deep. Lu Feng walked out of the door and looked at the dark sea. His mind was a little deep. He asked himself, what do people want to live for? In the last life, he couldn't figure out this problem. In this life, he thought he had found it. However, Zhang Xiaoyan, who had little to eat and had a poor family, had become a rich man. The foundation of the semiconductor market had also been laid. The enthusiasm in his early years was almost exhausted. This problem came again. Came out. In his previous life, Lu Feng firmly believed that life was meaningless, and even human beings were meaningless. All morals and laws were just for the convenience of managing the shackles placed on people, including products such as families. However, at this moment, he felt that his children had become the most important thing to him. He had to say that having more people in his family was indeed lively and happier. That kind of feeling cannot be bought by money. He has also tried to be surrounded by people, everyone supporting him, but that feeling is fake. He knows why these people smile, and those people also understand that as long as they fool around and make money, everything will be fine. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. Lu Feng felt a little out of breath. What he had always believed in was crumbling. In the last life, he did not get married, did not believe in family, and believed that all the happiness in the world could be bought with money. However, everything in this life was refuting he felt a little pain. If he had been like his character in the past, he would never miss anyone around him. No matter who passed away, he would not be moved at all, because only in this way can he be able to manage some things that cannot be done when managing a company. Eliminate those who bring benefits to yourself. Lu Feng once said self-deprecatingly that he was a born capitalist who pursued capital desperately and was at home in all corners of the world. The memories of the two lives were used like a tide, making him a little confused. He smoked cigarettes one after another. He told himself in his heart that he could not accept the threat. No matter who it was, he could survive without him. But there was a voice deep in his heart telling him that he needed this home. What he needed to face when he returned home was not a cold house, let alone the female companion he brought back from the wine shop, but his family and his children. Lu Feng let out a long sigh. He knew that he was being threatened. This time he really had a weakness. No one slept that night, and Zhang Xiaoyan was still waiting for the call. She began to feel soft, muttering to herself that men were like this, not to mention that he still had money, and it was all the fault of women outside. Zhang Fengxia stared at the TV, but her mind was not on the TV at all. She was secretly muttering in her heart, if he really doesn't want her anymore, how should she live? People are in a hurry, and although everyone is noisy, they never thought that one day they would really leave. Only by relying on each other can we be confident outside. No matter what the outside world is like, as long as we go home and complain to that person, everything will be over. It's daybreak. The ashtray in front of Lu Feng was full of cigarette butts. He put off today's meeting. He spent the whole night going over the recent events and already understood what they wanted. As for Lu Junjun, he seemed to also want to understand what's going on. When the sun rose, Lu Feng was so sleepy that he couldn't bear it anymore, so he went back to the house and fell asleep. After Zhang Xiaoyan sent Duo to school, she felt a little anxious and called Su Yurong. Su Yurong asked her to be quiet on the phone. Lu Feng understood that this time was completely different from the past and he would seriously consider it. Su Yurong actually had no idea. No one knew whether Lu Feng was willing to give up this family. If Lu Feng was willing to give up, according to Su Yurong's understanding of Zhang Xiaoyan and Zhang Fengxia would definitely leave. For her, at that moment love is dead. Zhang Xiaoyan is different. After so many years of struggle between the two parties, she has already understood what this man will bring to her. To be precise, Zhang Xiaoyan's love has died long ago. For 2 days in a row, Lu Feng stayed at home and did not go out. Zhu Lidong and several others could take care of the company's affairs. Zhang Xiaoyan wanted to call back during these days, but Zhang Fengxia was determined not to let him go. A week later, Lu Feng appeared in the company and held a meeting on the key work directions of semiconductors in the second half of the year. At the same time, he urged the large R/U0026D center in Tokyo to be put into operation as soon as possible. I took a trip to Tianjin to see the latest 8-inch wafers put into production. I also attended a domestic semiconductor conference where the issue of large funds was discussed. Everyone could see that Lu Feng was not in good condition. Liu Kan also asked about the situation in private, but Lu Feng did not answer and he was too embarrassed to ask any more questions. The mobile phone war is still going on, but Lu Feng is not the main force in this battle. Zhu Lidong is firing on all occasions. After Lu Feng returned to Shenzhen, he asked about the situation of overseas dealers, Hurricane Semiconductor's domestic market share, and the design and production of various chips in the first half of the year. Lu Feng got a new mobile phone, which was still giddy. He was very active and simple, and stopped participating in various activities. At the end of May, Su Yurong couldn't help it anymore and came to Shenzhen in person, chatted a lot with Zhang Xiaoyan, and finally decided to call Lu Feng to communicate. No matter what decision you make, at least you have to make it instead of dragging it out like this, Su Yurong said to the phone. I don't know why you dislike me so much and don't let me enter this home. What do you have? If you have any concerns, speak frankly. You are too utilitarian, Lu Feng said. Then why am I too utilitarian? From the time I walked out of the mountains to now, who else can I rely on besides money? Once I enter this family, I am a member of this family. Every penny I earn belongs to this family. Su Yurong said sincerely. Then what? Lu Feng snorted and said with some disdain, turn my money into yours. No, it is to turn our money into the family's money. This is not to plunder your property, but this family needs balance. When you had a relationship with Lu Junjun, did you ever think about them? What was in your mind? With both of them, you wouldn't do such a thing, would you? You don't even have this family in your heart. Then what should I do to realize that I have this family in my heart? Share my money with you equally? Or use equity as a check and balance? Then what? After a few years of separation, I will have nothing, Lu Feng asked. Can't you put down the money? Can you put your feelings first? Think about it, Su Yurong asked. Do you think it's 30-50? It's so easy to let it go. Tens of billions of assets, who can let it go? Lu Feng shouted. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1301. Latest website. No one asked you to put it down, but put your personal rights in this family. If they make a mistake, you can kick her away. Did you make a mistake? Su Yurong said in a deep voice. It's for this reason that you make mistakes unscrupulously. Think about it yourself, and talk about it after you think about it clearly. The call was hung up, and Zhang Xiaoyan sighed helplessly. This was like a family negotiation, trying to get more chips from Lu Feng. Such a confrontation was really consuming. Zhang Fengxia sat there blankly. In these days, she seemed to have overestimated her weight in Lu Feng's heart. She had always firmly believed that she could give everything for her children and Lu Feng. That kind of reckless dedication would make the other party also. You should be able to feel it. But during this period of time, she felt that she had never been so lost, a kind of loss that she had sacrificed a lot, but the other party didn't care at all. At 9 o'clock in the evening, the phone rang at home. Lu Feng picked up the phone and asked, "Who is it?" "Dad, it's me, Duo. Duo's voice sounded on the other end of the phone. "Duo, prepare well for the exam. Dad and your mother don't have much trouble. They are just noisy. It won't take long. Didn't I promise you before that I would be an assistant to the idol? Dad has already been contacted about this matter." "Okay," Lu Feng encouraged. Duo hummed, and after a while he said, "Then can you come and see me when I take the exam?" "When is your exam?" "June 15th. Okay, Dad will definitely be there. When the time comes, you can tell him in the examination room who will be the puppy if he doesn't show up, Lu Feng said seriously. Then can you guys stop arguing? Duo whispered, I don't want you to argue. I don't want to be rich. Being rich is not good. Why is it bad to have money? Lu Feng asked. Several of my classmates have rich families, and their families also quarrel or even fight. Some of their fathers are having affairs, and some of their mothers are having affairs. I recently met a few students from other schools. Their families are poor, but their parents we are at home every day and rarely quarrel. Duo said in a low mood. That classmate told me that her mother told her that rich people are immoral, so they look for affairs outside. Child, you can't be fooled by their sophistry. Being unpopular doesn't mean you are morally noble, Lu Feng sighed and said, don't worry, Dad will take care of things. You can study with peace of mind. Is the tutor here these days, already? Lu Feng led the topic elsewhere. The world of adults is incomprehensible to children. Some problems are simple for her, but there are many concerns for adults. During this period, Lu Feng couldn't sleep. He was always confused day and night. Some questions were stuck in his mind. He understood business very clearly, but he was very confused about life. Li Chen's outside the window was playing on the TV. Lu Feng smoked silently. The TV was loud and the singing completely surrounded him. Goodbye my beloved dream girl. I will go far away to find the future. If one day I return to my hometown, come and tell your feelings outside your window. It's easy to give up on someone. When you don't love them, the other person's giving up is a relief for you, but when you really realize that this person is about to return to the vast sea of people, you may never see him again in this life. Yes, this is a heartbreaking torture for a person. Just like the line in that movie, your world is without me, it doesn't matter. But when everything dissipated, the originally full soul was instantly hollowed out, as if it had lost all motivation. Standing on the same spot, looking around confusedly, life seemed to have no meaning at that moment. Lu Feng likes money. He knows what kind of changes wealth can bring to a person. He also suffered from poverty in his previous life, so like Su Yorong, he firmly believes that money can change everything. Human beings all have a common shortcoming, which is path dependence. When you believe in money and transform yourself into capital, you will laugh at the fragility and unbearability of emotions. Everything around you is reinforcing your point of view. Money can buy everything, including love and affection. People who believe in feelings tend to believe that man can conquer nature. They live a more practical, fulfilling and happy life. They believe that every smile around them is true. Lu Feng used to sneer at the saying that the world is what you are. He believed that there was objectivity in the world and would not change it based on subjective wishes. But now he feels that he believes in the world of emotions, whether it was brought to him by Zhang Xiaoyan at the beginning or Duo. The most difficult thing in life is choice. Lu Feng faced the most difficult choice in his two lives. His nature told him to choose money, but the warmth of his family over the years made him unable to let it go. Lu Feng understood that when he chose money, he would return to his previous life, where everything was glamorous, and there would never be a shortage of women around him, but his heart was as dry as a desert. It was a torment. Lu Feng handed over his work to Wei Yandan and locked himself at home alone. A week later, Duo called again, telling Lu Feng his examination room and asking him to arrive early. There should be a lot of people at the school gate that day. Lu Feng agreed. As if he had found his breakthrough, he ran out happily and bought himself a new set of clothes and got a haircut. After putting on his clothes and standing in front of the mirror, Lu Feng suddenly realized that he was looking forward to this day extremely, even more than the day when Giddy mobile phones were launched. Looking at himself in the mirror, compared to 10 years ago, the childishness on his face has long faded, and he is no longer as thin as before, and his whole person has become much more majestic. Lu Feng seemed to be touched by something in his heart. He found a month card at home, found a nail and nailed it next to the mirror. He looked at himself in the mirror and then looked at the month card next to him. Today is June 8, 1999. Number. How did it become like this? Lu Feng stared at himself and asked, if you had known that today would be like this, would you have stayed in the first place? There is no answer to this question and there will never be an answer. On June 15, Lu Feng woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, took a bath, put on new clothes, had a simple breakfast and rushed to school. At around 7 o'clock, a lot of people gathered at the school gate. Some people told their children over and over again to bring good things and counted them over and over again. Some parents also told their children to relax and take the exam. This time it was the unified examination, and there were people from all schools. Lu Feng saw someone driving a farm truck, someone driving a truck, and even a donkey cart. These families had different backgrounds, but at this moment they were standing on the same starting line. Superior. Lu Feng looked around but didn't see Duo Duo. Dad. I'm here. Lu Feng looked around, but still didn't see anyone. Before he could continue looking, a person fell into his arms. Where are you looking? We just arrived. Duo Duo put his arms around Lu Feng's neck and shouted. Hey, Lu Feng hugged her up. He was so excited at this moment. When the crowd called him daddy, Lu Feng even felt that it didn't matter if he died. Put me down, there are many people, Duo Duo shouted. Lu Feng looked around. It was obvious that parents nowadays were very restrained. There were still relatively few people as unrestrained as Lu Feng, and most of them were not good at words. My mother, Aunt Zhang, and Aunt Su are all here to see me off, Duo Duo said and looked at the three people standing aside. Lu Feng looked aside. The three of them were dressed particularly exquisitely today. Zhang Fengxia stared at Lu Feng with a bit of resentment in her eyes. Have you had breakfast? Lu Feng asked. Have eaten at home, Zhang Xiaoyan asked. Have you eaten? Have a bite. Lu Feng looked at Duo Duo and asked, have you brought everything? Check it again. When you go in later and encounter a question you don't know, put it aside first, do what you know how to do, and write down the name. Know it? It's almost 8 o'clock, and candidates are starting to enter the school one after another. Many parents are looking forward to the children entering the school. This exam is a hope for many families, as long as their children pass the exam. A key high school is a guaranteed undergraduate. College students in this era can really turn a family around. After a lot of encouragement and confirmation that the admission ticket, draft paper, pen, and other things were all ready, Duo Duo waved and walked inside. Lu Feng looked at her back, his heart was touched, his eyes were red and he was choked with sobs. Why are you crying? Su Yorong asked. The child has grown up, Lu Feng said while wiping away tears. Zhang Xiaoyan's eyes were red as well. If you are not a parent, you will never understand the touching moment when your child grows up. Students entered the examination room one after another, and there were only a lot of parents left at the school gate. As the sun rose, the heat began to spread, and various vendors at the school gate were selling various products. Just wait, there are 2 exams in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, Su Yorong said, go sit in the car. Lu Feng followed them into the car. Some things always had to be faced. Sitting in the car, Lu Feng saw a small lunch box and asked, the child didn't eat in the morning. That's what Fengxia brought for you. I'm afraid there will be no one to cook and you'll be hungry. Su Yorong closed the car door and said, it's good to have people feeling sorry for you, to be remembered. Lu Feng sat in the passenger seat and looked back at Zhang Fengxia. She lowered her head and said nothing. The car fell into silence. A couple were sitting on a donkey cart not far away. Their skin was tanned and they were fanning themselves with a broken fan in their hands. I also rode in a donkey cart when I was a child. I like sitting at the back of the cart because my feet could hang on the ground. Zhang Xiaoyan looked at the donkey drive. The happiest thing at that time was to cut a cart of grass for the donkeys to eat at night. How happy I am sitting in the back of the car. We don't have a donkey cart at home. Our place is full of mountains. We have to carry the pigs and grass back on our own. Su Yurong sighed and said, those 2 pigs are really good for eating. No matter how much I cut, there's not enough for them for food. I only have about 100 kilograms after working hard for 2 years. The car fell into silence again. After a while, Su Yurong said, you must be tired after making such a fuss for so long. I have been thinking about how long the fuss will last. Don't you just think that I want to enter this house? I don't have to enter this house, but you can't do this to them. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1302. Latest website. Su Yurong said that she was here to uphold justice. As long as Lu Feng could control herself, she could withdraw. Anyway, the equity she held in United Securities would be given to her son in the future. No matter how poor she was, she would not be that poor. Go. Some problems can be deceived by a few words when they are not a problem, but when the problem really becomes a problem, it will take heaven and earth to collapse before it can be stopped. Lu Feng knew that even if Su Yurong didn't want anything at this moment, it wouldn't work. It doesn't mean that if everyone says it's okay, then it really will be okay. If you want to have no gaps in your heart from now on, this matter must be completely resolved. The car was a little quiet, and a few parents outside were sitting on the curb chatting about their children, and the noise was a bit annoying. This kind of silence lasted all morning. No one seemed to have anything to say, or they were all waiting for an answer. I don't want to leave, and I don't want to accept the status quo, so I can only remain silent. There were less than 10 minutes left before the morning exam. Lu Feng lowered the car window, lit a cigarette, and said, I want to have a family, but I also need a guarantee. I can promise not to go out in the future. It's messy, but I can't guarantee what you will do after many years. There is a lack of trust between us. This is the foundation of a family, and now this foundation is shaken. You can say whatever you want. Let's settle the matter today, and you are quite busy. I won't waste your time. Zhang Fengxia was a little depressed. She was prepared, but there was still a trace of hope in her heart. How can it be a waste of time? If we meet once, even if we are separated, we may be the most important people in this life. Lu Feng saw children coming out of the teaching building and said, Duo is coming out. After that, Lu Feng opened the car door and walked out. Zhang Xiaoyan and the other 3 also got out of the car. After the exam, a large number of children rushed out. The first time the parents saw their children, they asked how they went in the exam. Is the question difficult? Most of the children were smiling. No matter whether it was difficult or not, it was a relief for them. As long as they finished the afternoon exam, everything was over. Under the scorching sun, Lu Feng couldn't feel the heat at all. He searched the crowd and couldn't find Duo for a while. Zhang Xiaoyan next to him suddenly shouted, Duo, here. Lu Feng turned around and saw that Duo had already walked to the side of the road. When he heard Zhang Xiaoyan's voice, he walked towards him and couldn't help smiling on his face. How do you feel? Lu Feng asked. First, is the question difficult? Fortunately, several of the questions are original questions. Those tutors have taught me and highlighted the key points for me. Duo said confidently, I think this time I will definitely do better than usual. When Lu Feng heard this, a smile appeared on his face, and he reached out to touch her head, thinking to himself, no money is wasted. Let's go and have a good meal. Whatever you want to eat, say whatever you want. Let's take the exam again in the afternoon, Lu Feng said with a smile on his face. We will go directly to Shenzhen Middle School then. Who goes to private school? If you want to go, go to public school. I don't have anything to eat, anything is fine. Then just take a bite of Western food, Lu Feng waved his hand. In a high-end Western restaurant half an hour away from the examination room, Lu Feng ordered all Duo's favorite foods. Everyone listened to Duo talk about what happened in the examination room. Some people couldn't write, some were nervous, and some secretly glanced at others. Papers. After eating and taking a brief rest, I drove back to the examination room. The examination started at 2:30 in the afternoon, and a group of parents crowded at the school gate again. Lu Feng stared at the school. He had never been so nervous in his 2 lives. These things have nothing to do with money. He just hopes that his children will be better than himself. As long as she goes further step by step, he will have something in his heart. It's indescribable pleasure, it seems to be a sense of mission, an inexplicable sense of mission and responsibility. The weather was hot and dry. Lu Feng wiped his sweat with a tissue, took a long breath and joked, "It's more anxious than taking the exam by myself." "You said it as if you had passed the exam," Zhang Xiaoyan teased. "I heard from your mother that when I was a child, I would tear up the paper when I took the exam, and when I got home, I would say that I didn't take the exam." Lu Feng smiled and said, "I don't care anymore. I don't make that much anymore. If you want to enter this house, just come in. As for what you have in mind later, just tell me. To be honest, I'm really a little tired. I am a person who has never been willing to trust others. Over the years, I have been wary of everything, but it is really comfortable to let go of that wariness." Lu Feng looked at the school, lit a cigarette and smoked silently, and continued, "I need a home that makes me feel at ease. As for whether it is right or wrong, I don't want to think about it anymore. I don't want to be tired outside. I feel tired even when I get home." Zhang Fengxia stretched out her hand from the back row and grabbed Lu Feng's hand tightly. For her, this moment was complete. Even if Lu Feng was penniless and went to the streets to beg for food tomorrow, she would be willing to follow him. Zhang Xiaoyan looked at Lu Feng and said, "As long as the child is well, everything will be fine. I'm already tired. I know you are afraid that I will empty out the family's money and have any bad intentions. You can see my behavior. I have been walking alone for these years. I also want a place where I can let go of my guard. I will contribute to this family." Su Yorong promised. "The weather is hot, and this inner dispute has finally come to an end. All we need is to let go. But in this lifetime, among the millions of people in the world, how many people can truly let go?" Su Yorong expressed her inner thoughts. They would definitely not be able to obtain the certificate. Then they would set up a holding company, put all the equity and assets under everyone's name into it, distribute it according to the company's equity, and then sign a concerted action agreement. Protocol. Use a company to manage the family and control everyone in the family. Everyone is a part of it. This is a company that will never raise funds and will never accept new shareholders. In order to show that he didn't care about money, Su Yorong kept his shareholding to the minimum. Lu Feng was the largest shareholder. If there were any problems, he could decide through voting. Just add one person to Lu Feng's shareholding and it would be done. With absolute control, Su Yorong, Zhang Fengxia, and Zhang Xiaoyan combined could refute Lu Feng. Perhaps this is the best solution for this family. Everyone must seek their own rights and status in the family without feeling superior or aggrieved. You can find someone to handle it. Then the contract will be submitted to our company's legal department for review. Lu Feng took a puff of smoke. "You should quit smoking," Zhang Xiaoyan said coldly. Lu Feng turned back to look at her, nodded, and threw the cigarette butt out of the window. As the exam ended, the family celebrated with duo. At the dinner table, Lu Feng told Duo that he had helped her contact the idol's agency. As long as she was willing, she could join the company within a week. However, because of her young age, there is no way to officially join the job, so there is no way to get a salary. Zhang Xiaoyan was a little worried about what would happen if she went to Xiangjiang alone. She wanted to find someone to accompany her, but Lu Feng refused. Duo could go to Xiangjiang alone, so she could no longer be treated as a child. If you are really desperate, Lu Feng said to Duo, in Xiangjiang, Shenzhen, or other first-tier cities, find a very luxurious office building and tell them that your father is Lu Feng. You can mention me in Xiangjiang. It might be useful. And Su knows a lot of people, Su Yorong said. And Fengxia is researching internet companies this year. If you go to an internet company, you can mention me, Zhang Fengxia also said. Zhang Xiaoyan listened to the comparison between several people and joked, it won't matter to your mother. You can only go to the maternal and child hospital. Maybe the director of the infertility department knows me. Everyone laughed, and the atmosphere at the scene finally became more harmonious. After dinner, everyone went home together. Summer vacation had just begun, and Duo had no homework, so he was excited and having fun around the house. Everyone was busy cleaning up the house. In the past month or so, Lu Feng had made the house a mess. It was already past 9 o'clock in the evening when they finished their work. Duo, Miao Miao, and Lu Jiaran all went to bed. Zhang Xiaoyan and the other three went to wash up. They talked happily and laughed, and it was clear that the relationship between the three of them was very harmonious. Lu Feng was lying on the bed and called Wei Yandan, telling her that he would resume work tomorrow and that he could give a report to him tomorrow on some things he had accumulated recently. Just after hanging up the phone, Lu Feng heard muttering outside the door. I'm going back to the house first. You come first, I'll wait for tomorrow. This is not appropriate. Let Sister Xiaoyan come first. No, he hasn't completely quit smoking yet. If he does, the child will be unhealthy. The three of them murmured politely and laughed out loud from time to time, as if this topic had been discussed among themselves more than once. Lu Feng was lying on the bed looking at the ceiling in a daze. There was only one sentence left in his heart at this moment, it's over, I'm going to suffer the same consequences. After a while, Zhang Fengxia opened the door and walked in. When she saw Lu Feng, she said, aren't you asleep yet? I was already sleepy, but I woke up when I heard you guys discussing outside the door. Lu Feng looked at her and said. Zhang Fengxia burst out laughing, climbed onto the bed and said, what? Is it so scary? You have gone through so much trouble to find me. If you want to enjoy the blessings of everyone, you have to forge a body of steel. Do you love me? Lu Feng couldn't help but laugh when he saw her arrogant look and said, of course I like it. When did you like me? Sister Xiaoyan, tell me, when I first went to GMA Food, you kept chanting my name in my dreams at night. Zhang Fengxia leaned forward and asked, did you take notice of me at that time? Really? I don't remember that she told me. Lu Feng thought about it carefully. It seems like it was an impromptu idea. Zhang Fengxia climbed up and took a sip. This night is destined to be the night to break the deadlock. Everything requires the first step. For Lu Feng, he needs a place where he can feel at ease. However, he did not expect that this place would provide him with peace of mind, but it would be too tiring. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1303. Latest website. Perhaps the nature of human beings is to be humble, and happiness can only be experienced when something is lost and found again. The next day, Lu Feng returned to the company to resume work and began to build his own channels. He attended 2 meetings of the Electrical Appliance City and put forward his own ideas for the future development of the Electrical Appliance City. In the next week, Lu Feng not only plans the development of mobile phones and goes to the front line for research, but also takes into account various semiconductor conferences, especially the promotion of large funds. Zhang Ruhing has been actively seeking funds after leaving Hurricane Semiconductor. Lu Fengfeng was also helping him organize. The semiconductor industry is a big industry, and no one company can do everything. As long as Hurricane grasps a few core industries, it will be enough to gain a foothold in the future. A week later, Duo Duo was taken to Xiangjiang and officially started her life as a little assistant. Lu Feng also hoped that through this time, she could take her mind back. The outside world was not as beautiful as she imagined, and the people were not as kind as she imagined. Although she only had 2 months, Lu Feng was still worried that she would be short of money. The family discussed for a long time and asked her to bring 40,000 Hong Kong dollars. According to her habit of spending money, the money was probably enough. In early July, Lu Feng received the concerted action agreement signed by Su Yorong. After review by the legal department, the entire contract was correct and there were no hidden clauses. 3 days later, Lu Feng registered a company in the Virgin Islands, used to control all enterprises and holding companies under his name. In mid-July, all the family's assets were transferred to this company. Rather than becoming members of the company's board of directors, it would be better to say that everyone got a different marriage certificate at this moment. The fierce battle for mobile phones has reached its peak. Giddy Mobile and Bird have reached an agreement. The two parties will maintain a non-bargaining attitude in the market, increase brand promotion efforts, and resist foreign companies. The next generation of mobile phones is invested in research and development. Giddy's flip phones have become a hot product, and many manufacturers are studying it. Lu Feng asked companies to withdraw from clamshell phones with external displays in 2001. Due to the lack of flip phones on the market, Giddy's publicity points also started to focus on the flip cover. Throughout July, Giddy was constantly being pursued and intercepted. Public opinions on plagiarism, patent infringement, and plagiarized designs came one after another. However, this did not affect the explosive sales of Giddy mobile phones at all. In the evening, Lu Feng returned home from work. Meow Meow was running around the house. The little one can now walk on her own, but sometimes she falls. Lu Feng specially laid a carpet at home. As for Lu Jiaran, he also learned how to walk climbing. It is quite interesting for two little guys to get together. Daddy! Daddy! Meow Meow held up the orange in her hand and wanted to give it to Lu Feng. Lu Feng knelt down and ate it in one bite, saying with a smile, "Oh, Daddy's good girl." "Have you eaten?" Zhang Fengxia walked out to look at Lu Feng and said, "She has been playing with those oranges all afternoon. I saw them kicking around on the carpet just now." Lu Feng also felt something was wrong. The orange hurt his teeth and he had to spit it out. "Ha ha ha ha," Zhang Fengxia stood aside and covered her mouth and laughed. "You are really cheating." Lu Feng picked her up, kissed her twice on her cheeks, took her back to the living room, and asked Zhang Fengxia, "No news about Duo Duo today? We can't throw it away." Mr. Su found a staff member who works with her to report her status every now and then. "I heard that she is a little resentful now and helps her carry her suitcase every day." Zhang Fengxia sat down and said, "No one will spoil her when she goes out. It's good. Take some heat. You grow up fast." Zhang Xiaoyan came back at around 7 o'clock in the evening. Su Yorong was still in Xiangjiang. It was always a problem that United Securities had no one to manage it. Since they were all eating from the same pot, Lu Feng handed over United Securities to her again. "I heard that she was hosting a financial dinner party again. After not showing up for a long time, she announced her new identity as Mrs. Lu in the evening. There were constant congratulations at the scene. Before, there were all kinds of scandals flying around in the industry. Now everyone its respect for her." During dinner, Zhang Xiaoyan ate her meal and said, "Yorong said you can't get the certificate, so you have to have a wedding anyway. What do you think about this? Zhang Fengxia quietly paid attention to Lu Feng's expression. This matter was not mentioned by Su Yorong, but what she was thinking about. No matter what, Zhang Fengxia was looking forward to having a wedding, and she cared about it very much. Zhang Xiaoyan and Su Yorong didn't care that much. One had been with Lu Feng for more than 10 years, and the other had seen through the coldness of reality and scorned romance. Okay, since we want to build this family, we have to hold a wedding and tell the world. Lu Feng put down his bowl and chopsticks and asked, should we do it this year, or after a century? I want to do it this year, Zhang Fengxia said slightly excitedly. I think it will be National Day this year. Everyone has time. Set the location in a seaside city. If you go abroad, relatives will be a problem. So many visas may not be approved. Just in domestically, Sanya is very good. She seemed to have thought about it a long time ago, talking endlessly about her plan. She went to Sanya to stay at the Gloria Resort Hotel. The scenery there was very nice, and it also hosted weddings and so on. There was a seaside venue, so she could get some boats and the bride will float over from the boat. Zhang Fengxia described the scene excitedly, as if she was already at the wedding scene at this moment. That's right. Let's go to Sanya. All kinds of banquets, wedding decorations, and air tickets for relatives will be arranged according to the budget of 1,500. I'll leave this matter to you, Lu Feng said to Zhang Fengxia. You also need to go and see it. I am satisfied with myself. If you are not satisfied, it is not appropriate. We still have to take wedding photos. At least we have to stop work for a while and go on vacation. Zhang Fengxia asked the two of them, you guys, can you put down your work? I can do it. Huasha is not in the expansion period, so the management can completely handle it. Zhang Xiaoyan looked at Lu Feng and said, I guess Giddy Mobile is a little busy, right? It's okay. I should be able to spare half a month in mid-August, mainly because I'm busy with semiconductors. Lu Feng thought for a moment. Then it will be from mid-August to September. I know there is a very famous wedding photography company in New York. They can travel around the world to take photos. I heard that they can even go to Antarctica. I will call and ask later. Zhang Fengxia was as excited as a child. Zhang Xiaoyan was a little infected by her, and they started talking about traveling to shoot weddings. The scenery in different parts of the world is different. The two of them said that they would shoot a group of domestic scenes and the others in Europe and the United States. The two got chatting and called Su Yorong again. They listened on the other end. When talking about taking wedding photos, a lot of ideas came up. This one is going to shoot martial arts, that one is going to shoot Hong Kong style, and another one is going to Antarctica to shoot under the aurora. Lu Feng had no right to speak at this moment. They chatted passionately about various jewelry, clothing, humanities, geography, and scenery. Starting from the next day, Lu Feng was busy completing the work at hand as much as possible. He took the time to go to Tianjin to inspect the final phase of the semiconductor industrial park. He returned to Shenzhen to see the second phase of the Giddy Industrial Park. It is expected that it will be ready for delivery in September. Currently, Giddy mobile phones are in full production, and Lu Feng asked Zhu Lidong to cultivate new mobile phone manufacturers. Hurricane Semiconductor should be able to provide 80% of the accessories for a mobile phone brand at any time. Semiconductors should be used in the two major consumer electronics, mobile phones and computers. The product has a status of its own system. In addition, it must have the production and design capabilities of various types of chips. Lu Feng's request for Hurricane Semiconductor is that in the next 10 years, Hurricane Semiconductor can create a large number of computer brands and mobile phone brands at any time as long as it wants to. The three of them, Zhang Xiaoyan, discussed back and forth for more than half a month, and finally decided to shoot one group in China and two groups in Europe. As for Antarctica, they would not go. During this time, not only do they have to take wedding photos, but they are also busy booking hotels and contacting wedding companies. According to the three people's ideas, the wedding scene is expected to require a lot of private customization, and the wedding dress also needs to be customized in advance. In mid-August, Lu Feng handed over the company to several senior executives, and his entire family rushed to the United States. They filmed in many European and American countries for more than 10 days. At the end of August, Lu Feng received a call from Duo, asking her to come back. Lu Feng could tell that she was a little aggrieved on the phone, so he asked, "Isn't it going to end on September 5th? What's wrong? All the money is spent." "I was bullied today," Duo choked on the phone and said about her experiences in the past 2 months. In addition to having to take care of an adult every day, she was scolded when she couldn't do things well, and she was blamed for other people's mistakes. No matter how you explain it, it's useless. A few days ago, the daughter of a big boss came to meet her idol. Because she was standing closer to the front, she was pushed away and knocked to the ground. After a few words of quarrel, she was taken away by 2 people and scolded in a room. She kept crying. "Then your idol didn't speak for you?" Lu Feng asked. "No, at first he cared about me because I was young, but then he stopped caring about me. Once, he scolded me because the water was too hot and told me to get out," she choked. Okay, your mother and I are abroad. You go home first. We will return to China in 2 days. Then we will take wedding photos with you," Lu Feng comforted her. Listening to the little one crying on the phone, Lu Feng felt really sad. Even though she was so smart at home, she was still a child outside. It wasn't until it was confirmed that Duo had returned to the Xiangjiang villa that Lu Feng felt relieved. After 2 days of filming, the group set off to return home. Seeing Duo again, he felt that he was no longer as happy as he was at the beginning. It was obvious that this trip was not less after suffering, those eyes lost a lot of innocence. A few days before the start of school, Lu Feng took her to some scenic spots in China to take a group of photos and also travel by the way. As school started and she entered Shenzhen Middle School, Lu Feng returned to the company and continued to work, while Zhang Fengxia worked tirelessly. Wedding setting. As giddy mobile phones began to be wholesaled in overseas markets, the sales volume in August officially exceeded 100,000 units. The total sales volume in 8 months has reached 920,000 units. It is only one step away from annual sales of 1 million units. Lu Feng everyone was also praised at the mobile phone department meeting. It means that everyone will definitely get a lot of bonuses at the end of this year. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1304. Latest website. In September, Lu Feng went to Sanya several times to see the on-site situation and contacted several flights at the same time. Because everyone's relatives were in different provinces, he needed to book several flights to be busy. Lu Feng told his family about the wedding. When his parents received his call, they were still angry about what happened during the Chinese New Year. However, Lu Feng had not made many calls in the past 6 months. They understood that they were completely unable to control Lu Feng. Rather than being so unpopular, it is better to just be a parent and not worry about anything else. For a time, the news that the CEO of Hurricane Capital was getting married spread all over the major industries. The banquet originally scheduled for 300 to 400 people ended up with too many friends in the business world, and the number of people increased again, and finally even exceeded the 1,000. A full 100 tables. At the end of September, Lu Feng had put down his work and brought everyone to Sanya. Some relatives of Lu Feng, Zhang Xiaoyan, Zhang Fengxia, and Su Yurong also arrived early. The wedding had been rehearsed several times, and after confirming that there were no problems, Lu Feng was still busy receiving guests, even being harassed by various media. It was not until 2 days before the wedding that the wedding dresses of the 3 people arrived, including various interludes continue. Because this was a wedding that was different from others, Lu Feng did not allow any media to report it, let alone allow it to become a topic for hurricane capital. On October 3, thousands of people had gathered in Sanya. A poor relative of Lu Feng's family who had never traveled far for 3 generations also came to the hot Sanya. Under the attention of everyone at the beach, a popular host walked onto the stage and began the opening remarks of the day. After a few minutes of blessings, he invited the groom Lu Feng to come on stage. Lu Feng held 3 bouquets of flowers in the cheers of the flower belt all over the sky. Walking onto the stage, the wedding stage was set up on the seaside, and part of it was in the sea. After a brief banter between Lu Feng and the host, they wanted to pick up the bride. The 3 of them took small boats more than 100 meters away from Lu Feng. I don't know who had the sudden idea to arrange 10 boats. Lu Feng only had 5 chances, and Tang Bo who ordered Kaiyuk Siang. As Lu Feng made 2 wrong choices, the atmosphere at the scene reached a climax. There were many people around who were making suggestions. Duo quietly told Lu Feng which boat Zhang Xiaoyan was on. After a long time of fussing, the 3 of them finally came ashore. The process was not too much. They made some casual remarks and then exchanged rings. Some people who did not know the situation murmured in private, but did not dare to ask any more questions. After kissing the bride, this part was supposed to be about serving tea to the parents, but neither Zhang Xiaoyan nor Zhang Fengxia's parents were willing to go on stage, so this part was cancelled. Zhang Fengxia burst into tears at the scene, and Su Yurong was also quite moved. Lu Feng had attended many weddings in his previous life, and he knew very well that few people at the scene cared about what they were doing on the stage or what their mood was. What they cared more about was how the banquet was, and how they felt. Is the person you want to see here? As the ceremony ended, Lu Feng took the 3 of them back to the room. After changing their clothes, they began to toast. There was a lot of commotion at the scene, and it was very lively for a while. Regardless of the state and mentality of the parents of each family, after the day is over, whether they are happy or unhappy, raw rice has really become cooked rice this time. As relatives and friends dispersed, Duo also returned to school. Before leaving, Lu Feng gathered several parents together and had a simple meal. From now on, each family would go back to their own homes. During the holidays, they also no more running back and forth. If you want to see your daughter or children, just come by yourself. Anyway, the place is big enough to accommodate everyone. As for being filial to their parents, this is the responsibility of children. Starting from this year, every family will have a budget of 2 million for the new year. This amount of money is enough for them to live very prosperously. Lu Feng still had things to be busy with. He originally thought about going on a honeymoon or something. Zhang Xiaoyan and the 3 of them had their own things to do, so they couldn't be apart for too long. They finally decided to put the honeymoon period during the Chinese New Year, and take a stroll around the country first, and then cross the border. The honeymoon period of the century. Cross-century has become the most hyped word in the world. Everyone is looking forward to the year 2000. Especially in this year, the legend of the end of the world has spread wildly. The 20th century will be the last century of the earth. Such rumors, I don't know how many people believe it. The end of the world this year is even crazier than that of 2012. Giddy Mobile also took advantage of this wave of public opinion to create a Giddy mobile phone before the end of the world. In October, Giddy mobile phone sales officially exceeded 100,000 units, and overseas wholesale sales exceeded 20,000 units in a single month. The market was relatively strong, but Lu Feng still planned a wave of year-end promotions. This year, with the launch of Giddy mobile phones, there are more and more products competing against each other, and the market is extremely crowded. At the end of October, Lu Feng convened a meeting with Du Guoying. He planned to conduct a promotional event at the end of the year, remove inventory, launch new products next year, and develop a new generation of products. The new generation of products will mainly be placed on flip phones and push-pull phones. Lu Feng asked Liukin to push up the unit price of the product, and keep the unit price at a high price of about 3,000 yuan. Once the unit price of the product dropped, it would be difficult to push it up again. Du Guoying proposed a dual brand strategy, but this idea was vetoed by Lu Feng. Dual branding meant that two investments in publicity were needed. Now Giddy cannot afford such expenditures, and the market is not big, so it is difficult to seize other players. Market share. When Lu Feng held a meeting with Liukin, he asked them to come up with large screen products in 2002, especially to make great efforts in touch capacitive screens. At the same time, they should establish a dedicated team on the system to learn from Nokia. For the R/U0026D company, Lu Feng actually has a lot of ideas. Splitting the R/U0026D company into different project teams will improve efficiency. Many of Hurricane's project teams are no longer suitable for corporate development, and internal reforms are ahead of them. A mission. In November, the R/U0026D company was officially reorganized. The original R/U0026D company was split into three parts: mobile phone R/U0026D department, computer R/U0026D department, and communications R/U0026D department. Two vice presidents were promoted, each to handle their own projects. There was a lot less work. Middle term. With the reorganization completed, Lu Feng took a brief look at the profits of Hurricane Capital this year. In the first 10 months, Giddy Mobile's net profit exceeded 500 million, United Securities' net profit reached a terrifying 2.3 billion, and Hurricane Semiconductor's net profit after earning 80 million yuan in 10 months, Huaxia turned a loss into a profit, with a net profit of more than 1 million yuan, which basically covered the operation of the company. Hurricane Capital's businesses have all achieved profitability since then. Lu Feng took advantage of the new year to hand over the company to Zhu Lidong and others, and took Zhang Xiaoyan, Su Yurong, and Zhang Fengxia to start their honeymoon trip in advance. The first stop was back to my hometown. This small town has basically not changed much over the years. It is still a dusty intersection. The tallest building is the 7-story hotel. Downstairs is a Cantonese-style tea restaurant, the most popular in the area. A high-end morning tea shop. 10 minutes away by motorcycle on the left-hand side of the intersection is the original canning workshop. A little way further east is Ren Qianbo's factory, which is still deserted and overgrown with weeds. Zhang Fengxia chattered about her original idea of coming here with Gao Jiwei. She felt like she was going to be sold into a mountain to be someone's wife. She also talked about her first impression of meeting Lu Feng. Everyone laughed so hard that they couldn't stand up straight. Come. The place was not big, so I walked back to the place where I originally rented. People were chatting in 2s and 3s downstairs. Lu Feng saw an acquaintance and wanted to go over and say hello, but Zhang Xiaoyan stopped him. Life is like a movie. Now we are replaying the previous scenes, from Zhang Xiaoyan to Zhang Fengxia, and then to Su Yurong. There are countless stories contained in this small city. Many things are a bit emotional to talk about, the people and things of those years, but when talking about it now, I don't know what to say. No one can think of today, and no one can think that one day he will walk the same path all over again. Lu Feng stood in front of the small workshop. No one had taken care of it since it was smashed. As for what Zhou Jiangguo and Sun Longbin were doing now, no one knew. Zhang Xiaoyan looked at everything in front of her and murmured to herself, "It's like a dream." Life is like a dream, Lu Feng said to everyone, "I'm treating you today, Cantonese-style morning tea, whatever you want." "Where are we going in the next few days?" Su Yurong got in the car and said, "You still have to ask for the air tickets in advance. There are not many domestic flights." It is better for us as a big family to have a plane when we go out. Then buy a plane next year, Lu Feng said boldly. The car arrived at the entrance of the Cantonese-style tea restaurant with everyone cheering. Lu Feng got out of the car and took a look. It has not changed at all over the years and the business is still good. I found a seat and sat down, ordered some food, and listened to the various accents in my ears. There are still many outsiders coming to this kind of place. A man in his 40s next to him glanced at them, as if he could tell that Lu Feng was not an ordinary person, so he asked, "Where is the boss from?" "Ask me?" "I'm a local," Lu Feng replied. "You look familiar." "What kind of business do you do?" the man continued to ask. "I am a popular person, and everyone looks familiar to me." "I just do some small business. What about you?" Lu Feng asked. "I just came back from overseas and I'm thinking about investing in something." "I see that you don't look like an ordinary person. You are definitely good at big business. If you want to do any business, I can invest in you. My dad is also a well-known figure in Hong Kong," the man said with a proud look. Lu Feng was stunned. Zhang Fengxia was covering her face and laughing so hard. Su Yorong and Zhang Xiaoyan were a little confused, not knowing what was going on. The waiter had noticed the conversation here and came over with the small teapot. While adding water, he whispered, "Sir, it's best to be careful when going out. Don't be fooled." "Hey, what did I lie to? How did you talk?" the man said with an unhappy look on his face. "I didn't mention you. I meant that a long time ago, a marketing manager from Wahaha was deceived here." "It's better to be careful," the waiter said with a smile. Lu Feng couldn't help but let out a puff when he lit one. Zhang Xiaoyan couldn't help but asked, "What's going on?" "Didn't you hear what he said?" Zhang Fengxia said with a smile. "Back then, he deceived Gao Jiwei, and what about Jack and him?" "It's okay not to mention the old things," Lu Feng waved his hands in embarrassment. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1305. Latest website. Old things are brought up one after another. People and things from those days have long since changed. Time always slips away unconsciously. It is already a century before we raise our heads again. Datu, Gao Jiwei, and others invited Lu Feng and his family to chat about the past and enjoy the future. The 1990s were about to pass, and Lu Feng suddenly thought of how people would feel about this decade many years later. It seems that these 10 years are like a golden decade. They are more innocent and people are more simple. Whenever people feel tired in real life and tired of intrigues, they will think about what it would be like to go back to that place. In the age of opportunities, the turbulent years of my father's generation, I would never be so ordinary. Lu Feng asked many people at the dinner table how they viewed the decade of the 1990s. Everyone sighed melancholy. He could sum it up in one word: chaos. Fights and fights were commonplace, and human life cases were common in the newspapers. International. The sudden changes in the situation and the waves of bullying made it difficult for people to hold their heads high. But there is development. Color TVs are basically universal, and most rural areas have electricity. Inflation is indeed serious, but wages have also increased at a high rate. From the original salary of 180 yuan to the current salary of 400 to 500 yuan. Lu Feng mentioned several keywords at the dinner table: romance, innocence, and gilding, which made them think which of these three words was more relevant to this era, and everyone couldn't help laughing. "A few days ago, I heard that a thief was caught stealing something on a minibus. He took out a knife and someone was stabbed 3 times, Datu said with emotion. People can't be found when they run away. Is this still the romantic era? It seems like this is a reckless era, Lu Feng said while holding up his wine glass. Lu Feng suddenly understood why so many people fell in love with the present many years later. This was just a kind of spiritual sustenance. He felt that he would be able to stand out in another era. When an era gets old, it will be romanticized and symbolized. There will be no shortcomings and pain in the era, only imaginary innocence will remain. Wishful thinking thinks these people are simple, just like the city looks at the countryside. Lu Feng tried to summarize this era in the last period of time, but later he found that he could not summarize it at all. He could only summarize the people he had walked through. In the vast era, he seemed too small, and no one could represent an era. That feeling of insignificance made him a little breathless. He was a little lucky that he had done something insignificant. There are many technologies in the semiconductor field that currently have a certain status in the world, and the semiconductor industry has been embedded into the semiconductor industry more than 10 years ahead of schedule. In globalization. Leftover. Have you gone from one billionaire to another? In his previous life, Lu Feng would definitely write about his status as a rich man to express his greatness. But at this moment, he feels that billionaires are not worth mentioning at all, but are just created by the movement of the times. A bubble, some rich people's bubbles are bigger, last for several generations before the bubble bursts. Some of them dissipate in just a moment, leaving only the endless flow of the times. These rich people are like water bubbles under the collision of the times, appearing and disappearing one after another. In mid-December, Lu Feng arrived at Mount Tai. He had been to most of the scenic spots in China. In addition, the current scenic spots were not well constructed, so he decided to climb Mount Tai. When Lu Feng stood on the top of Mount Tai after all the hard work, he looked at the clouds and mist under his feet and saw the small mountains. He was filled with emotion. Not far away, someone shouted to the sky, which was nothing more than some blessings. First century. When people today look back on the 1990s, little do they know that people in the 1990s are looking forward to the 21st century. Everyone admires each other standing in different time and space. Lu Feng looked at the rows of people not far away and couldn't help but I laughed, looked back into the distance, and shouted in my heart, I will definitely live up to the times. I want to become a rich man. Work hard. Strive. A man standing next to Lu Feng suddenly shouted, which startled Lu Feng. Are you Mr. Lu? The man turned back to look at Lu Feng and asked, I have read about you in the newspaper. Many people say that you are now the veritable richest man in the country. Can you tell me how you became rich? Lu Feng looked at him and said, you said it yourself, work hard. Strive. No, 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 this era is no longer good. Working hard is just working for you capitalists and being squeezed by you desperately. I heard that you made your fortune in 1989. If I go back to 1989, I will definitely do well. The man said confidently. So in your eyes, 10 years ago was so beautiful. Do you know how insulting this idea was to the young people 10 years ago? Do you believe that in 2009, some people will say that if they were in 1999, I will definitely become a rich man? Lu Feng laughed. You clearly know where the path to wealth lies. You have already said, work hard. Struggle. But you chose fantasy between the two. You cannot go back in life, and time will not flow backwards. The best starting point in life is now. Who knows whether today's unknown people will become famous many years later. You people will always say these useless nonsense. You have money, there are people behind you, and you have connections. What do I have? The man snorted disdainfully and said, I don't have anything to ask for, just talk. No one listened. Young people, relationships, and backgrounds cannot fill the whole world. Incompetence is incompetence. Why bother to make so many excuses to fool yourself? Only when people admit their ordinariness can they move towards the extraordinary. Those who dare not draw a starting line for themselves, man, Where does the end come from? He no longer listened to what Lu Feng said. He just complained that the general environment was not good. He could not find jobs everywhere. The society was full of connected people. He had no connections and no background. No one looked down on him at all. He hoped that Lu Feng could give him a sum of money. He wanted to make a big deal and become a successful person. He hoped that Lu Feng could invest tens of millions in him. Lu Feng couldn't help laughing when he heard this and stopped talking to this person. Everyone's times are different. Some people are full of hope for the future, while others are extremely disappointed with this society. The world cannot be so extreme, nor can it be so moderate, so it runs like a pot of 8 treasure porridge. At the end of December, Lu Feng went abroad. For convenience, he rented a private plane and traveled to many countries and places. On January 1, 2000, Lu Feng was in Stockholm, Sweden. When this day came, Swedes came one after another. Taking to the streets to celebrate, they were all thankful that the end of the world had not come. The world has finally ushered in the 21st century. From this moment on, for Lu Feng, the 1990s have once again become history, and everything he did has been sealed in the long river of time. Zhang Fengxia and others were having a snowball fight excitedly. Lu Feng stood at the top wearing a ski suit and looked at the sun in the sky. He secretly sighed that it was over. The 1990s were over. Whether you like it or not, it has become history at this moment. Everything is settled, and there is no other possibility. Sister Xiao Yan vomited. Come here quickly, Zhang Fengxia shouted to Lu Feng. What's wrong? Lu Feng turned around, slid down, and ran to Zhang Xiaoyan to see that she had vomited a lot. 3 or 4 people from the medical team had already ran over. Zhang Xiaoyan got on the stretcher, and Lu Feng didn't want to play anymore. He changed his clothes and hurried to the hospital. After waiting for 2 hours, after various examinations, he got the result that he was pregnant. What? Lu Feng said in disbelief. It is true that she is pregnant. She is not suitable for more intense sports such as skiing. It is recommended that she take more rest, the doctor said to Lu Feng. Zhang Fengxia and Su Yurong looked a little excited and ran into the ward happily, telling Zhang Xiaoyan the good news immediately. Because Zhang Xiaoyan was pregnant, the planned honeymoon trip had to be ended early. She returned to the mainland in mid-January. As Zhang Xiaoyan's heart opened up, her life found a new balance, and everything moved towards a happy 21st century. End of book. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1306. Latest website. Time will smooth out everything, even the earth and the ocean. The 1990s have passed, and the times have different feelings for everyone. I often miss the past and think that living in that era was less stressful and happier. This is just a reflection of real life. Of escape. There is no bitterness or sweetness in life, there is only one state, and that is to endure. When you have too high expectations for the future, you will become more and more dissatisfied with the present. There is a saying that Lu Feng likes very much, all anger is because of incompetence, but is there really anyone in this world who is omnipotent? Across the century, Lu Feng spent 2 years opening up sales channels, establishing direct sales channels in major cities and provincial capitals across the country, and new mobile phones were officially launched. This year, Giddy Mobile launched 5 mobile phones at once, targeting different groups of people and occupations. The best phone among them used a 3.2-inch resistive screen and was paired with a stylus. This innovation directly caused a sensation in the global industry. In 2002, Hurricane Semiconductor achieved full profitability, the semiconductor industry came out of the trough, and the world entered an era of high explosive growth. Lu Feng took the opportunity to expand aggressively, reformed its semiconductors, and segmented the industry. Several core companies became subsidiaries and became independent, responsible for profit and loss. Liukan is responsible for research and development projects, and is no longer responsible for management of production projects. Throughout 2002, in the field of semiconductor expansion, Lu Feng directly spent 500 million, spending almost all of the company's profits in the past 2 years. The market for copycat phones has also exploded as expected, but compared to the previous generation, TSMC has not taken much advantage. Hurricane Semiconductor's chips, motherboards, and screens are all extremely cheap, and it can sell extremely well in the accessories market. The wholesale price is low, which makes the sales of chips from the other side disappear. Processors, motherboards, and memory from Intel and other companies are expensive, and assembling a computer is not cheap. Therefore, Hurricane products are flooded in computer cities across the country. In various emerging internet cafes, 80% of computer accessories are sold. It is a product of Hurricane. Hurricane Semiconductor's explosive sales did not bring much profit, and the overall profit margin has remained at around 20%. Compared with its peers, this profit is simply unprofitable. Lu Feng understands very well that the future will belong to him only if he is involved in the other side. What's more, now is the best time for development. In terms of semiconductors, he has talked with almost all domestic brands. Regardless of whether they are competitors or not, Lu Feng will have one meeting with them. As long as you can develop and grow, even if you have a dispute with Giddy mobile phones, it won't be a big problem. Hurricane Capital has since completely entered an era of great competition. In the following 2 years, Lu Feng established a new mobile phone brand and split the mobile phone business into 2 independent subsidiaries, requiring the 2 companies to compete freely in the market. The better, the more support the group headquarters will provide to its affiliated companies. Duo graduated from high school in 2002 and did not take the college entrance examination. Instead, Zhang Fengxia was the recommender, and Lu Feng donated money, allowing Duo to go to Harvard directly. The further development of United Securities, especially the listing of mainland companies in Hong Kong, was basically operated by United Securities. In just a few years, Su Yurong became very close to major consortiums in Hong Kong, and United Securities also became a front-runner in Hong Kong. It has over 10 securities companies and also provides financing, guarantee, and other projects for some very large state-owned enterprises in the mainland. At the suggestion of Lu Feng and Zhang Fengxia, Huaxia reorganized, divested daily chemical products, and established a new high-end brand. It cooperated with overseas companies to develop high-end brands, mainly producing high-end clothing, shoes, and hats, and luxury goods. It is the most profitable product. At the beginning of the 2000s, the Hurricane Investment Department invested in a number of internet companies and semiconductor companies, and actively deployed domestic offline electrical appliance cities. With the listing of Minsheng Bank, Lu Feng's net worth has skyrocketed. Forbes has called Lu Feng many times, hoping that he can accept being on the list. After all, this is a manifestation of strength for the country. Lu Feng has no idea about these things. I don't care, not to mention that I have already been in the limelight for the past 10 years. The days that followed were mainly low-key. Except for some important meetings, Lu Feng basically does not appear in the media at other times. Even so, it still cannot stop some people from causing trouble. In 2005, Forbes' latest ranking of the world's richest people was released, instantly triggering a heated discussion on the domestic internet. Lu Feng ranked 3rd in the world and 1st in Asia with assets of $38 billion. According to the exchange rate conversion, Forbes estimated that Lu Feng he is worth 300 billion yuan. As soon as the news came out, it quickly went viral on the Tianya forum. Young people were a little surprised by this person whom they had hardly heard of. They did not expect that there were such rich people in the country. However, some older people knew Lu Feng very well and posted on the forum that he was the king of television back then. Various media brought Lu Feng's legs to the forefront, but it did not last long. All major media stopped talking about it, and there were only a few legends left on the internet. Even he himself doesn't know the exact amount of Lu Feng's assets. The valuations of his 37 companies fluctuate every day. If calculated according to the peak market value, investments in banks, securities, semiconductors, communications, internet, etc. companies, etc., are not much different. In 2006, Hurricane Semiconductor strengthened its ties with global semiconductors and achieved innovation in many fields. The international environment improved slightly. However, it still mainly suppressed Chinese companies. Lu Feng asked semiconductor companies to take the initiative internationally. Acquire if you can, and strengthen cooperation if you can't. In various industries, we must achieve the point where you have me and you have me. One company alone cannot compete with the entire industry. What Lu Feng can do is to make Hurricane Semiconductor. There are more core technologies, which are at least an important part of the global division of labor and cooperation. In 2006, Zhang Xiaoyan graduated from Duoduo University and applied for graduate school at Yale. In the same year, Zhang Xiaoyan's son Lu Qingsheng officially entered the first grade. This year, Zhang Fengxia had another son. In the same year, Su Yurong became pregnant. The family had a daughter who was a graduate student and a fetus that was several months pregnant. During the 2008 global financial crisis, the already fragile semiconductor industry on the other side collapsed completely, and Samsung was also in crisis. Lu Feng asked all his companies to support Hurricane Semiconductor and carry out expansion acquisitions despite the trend. In order to alleviate the financial problem, Lu Feng entered futures with 5 billion yuan and began to be long in oil. After sweeping the futures market, he used the funds to acquire two Fuzhou semiconductor companies. At the same time, he forced Samsung to cooperate and the two parties established a research and development center. Jointly developed displays, motherboards, processors, and other projects. Entering 2010, Samsung reneged on the cooperation and the two parties began to file a lawsuit. Giddy mobile phones gradually increased their global market share, and the dual brand strategy officially launched a sweep mode. This year, the hurricane caused more than 70 computers of different sizes around the world. Mobile phone manufacturers supply the goods. As long as you provide a budgeted cost, Hurricane can make a mobile phone for you. In 2011, Hurricane officially supplied a company called Xiaomi, and formed a complete industrial chain around the world. It was Qualcomm chips that collided with Hurricane. Hurricane accounted for more than 20% of global chip output. Except for some products with relatively weak capabilities, the core processor, storage, display, and other aspects are all world-class. The only thing that makes Lu Feng regretful is that the operating system was not developed. It was developed by 4 business groups, but as a result, a system that could replace Android was not produced. The system applications they produced were gradually eliminated by the market after a few years. In 2015, global terminal digital products entered a period of explosive growth. Hurricane Semiconductor completely became a money printing machine. The annual net profit exceeded $6 billion. At the same time, the mobile phone business and invested internet companies also became horizontal. A dominating giant. As Hurricane Capital made rapid progress, it soon encountered international pressure. In the same year, Hurricane Semiconductor was fined in the United States and sued in Europe for environmental protection issues. The lawsuit between the two parties fell into a stalemate. Lu Feng immediately evacuated everyone in his family to the country, and at the same time communicated with many companies in the industry, asking them to pay more attention to risk prevention and try not to let important executives go to countries in the US camp. In 2016, the United States launched a global investigation into Hurricane. They believed that Hurricane had stolen many technology patents. As for restricting products, Lu Feng knew that it would be difficult for them to restrict products in this life. Hurricane has deep relationships with many leading companies in Silicon Valley. Cooperate. In addition, after TSMC was bankrupted by a hurricane in early 2000, SMIC and Samsung accounted for 80% of the global wafer market. They don't have so many choices and can only do some tricks on technology patents. Entering 2018, due to Europe's huge fines against Hurricane Semiconductor and the restrictions and penalties imposed on Huaxia, the value of Lu Feng's family has shrunk significantly. This year, due to Hurricane Semiconductor's high market share in Europe, a fine was issued under monopoly law. None of the companies that were sanctioned in the previous life have been affected in this life, but Hurricane has become the most conspicuous one. The world has not been changed by Lu Feng, but it cannot be said that it has not changed at all. Chips have not been sanctioned, and there is no shortage of chip use in the country. It's just that the chip is just a reason, just like a hat. He may say that he will hit you because you are wearing a hat, but it does not mean that he will not hit you if you don't wear a hat tomorrow. The world is still the same world, and Lu Feng has not changed anything. The wars that should be fought, and those that should be fought against you, are still against you. This has nothing to do with the addition of a powerful company in the world, and this is not something that a company can change. Lu Feng returned to that time again. He even returned to the hotel where he was before his rebirth. He was silently thinking in his heart, what kind of person can go back and change the world? Or is it that the world cannot be changed at all, we can only change ourselves, and we ourselves are meaningless to the world? He suddenly felt depressed. As a billionaire, he was meaningless to the world. Then wouldn't it be even more meaningless for an ordinary person to exist in this world? After thinking for a long time, he suddenly understood something. There are only small people in the big era, and there is no small era in the big people. The years are moving forward in a mighty way. No matter they are bears or heroes, they are just people who conform to the times. They rise and fall, and stand. People on the top of the waves always feel that they are the ones making the waves. Little did they know, the waves rolled up and were knocked down in the next second, disappearing everyone. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1307. Latest website. No one knows how Mr. Zhang became the richest man in the city. Anyway, in this prefecture-level city with a population of 2.8 million, young people basically know Mr. Zhang's existence. He owns the largest vegetable distribution center in the city. The large shopping mall in the center belongs to him, plus a large building materials shopping mall. Some people say that his father's generation carried a gun, and some say that he recognized a godfather and became rich overnight. But one thing everyone is sure of is that Mr. Zhang was very rich in the 1990s. For people in this era, for young people, trying to figure out what happened in the 1990s is like a fantasy. In recent years, Mr. Zhang's life seems to have not been so smooth. The shopping mall has been sold, and the building materials city has also been sold. Some people say that his good luck is over, while others say that people like him should not be rich. There are many people in this city who have a good relationship with Mr. Zhang. Their evaluation of Mr. Zhang is that he is just lucky and extremely good. People with whom we have a good relationship usually call him Lao Zhang, and those who have a particularly good relationship with him usually call him Datu. Data grew from a vegetable market back then. In 2006, I saved some money, just in time for the renovation and upgrading of the old urban area in the city center. The original hypermarket was to be demolished in the hope of building a modern supermarket. Over the years of collecting rent in the vegetable market, Datu has been particularly fond of collecting rent. This is a very profitable and risk-free thing. Coupled with the rapid economic development in recent years, the original small vegetable market has expanded 6 to 7 times. Not only it is the city's fruit and vegetable distribution center and also radiates to several surrounding cities. One of the big reasons why the vegetable market can be so big is that Datu has a simple and honest personality and doesn't like to take advantage of others. Over time, all kinds of vendors, big and small, have gathered here. The supermarket in the city center was a big business. Datu inspected it several times. He was afraid that some of the leader's relatives would take a fancy to it. He also inquired a lot in private. He heard that no one was involved, so he took it with confidence. This job is not a big deal. The funds must be allocated at one time. At the same time, the construction unit must be designated. It is stipulated that it must not exceed 5 floors, and the basement also has civil air defense requirements. To put it simply, you have to give enough money to build a shopping mall at once, and you don't know whether you can make money later. That is, if you are simple and honest, don't understand the mess, and work with a simple mentality, then you can work for me for a day. If I work, I will give them a day's wages. If it were Lu Feng's place, he would never do it. After the mall opened, it was full of tenants. Someone also told him that by dividing the mall into grids, he could not only recoup the cost but also make a lot of money by selling them. The boss rejected this proposal because the business was not necessarily stable. If tomorrow goes bad, won't people lose money? Adhering to this concept, the explosion of shopping malls has continued for more than 10 years. Around 2013, real estate continued to rise, and the building materials industry was also developing at a spurt. When I attended some dinner parties in the city, some people said that the local area was lagging behind, and it was too troublesome to buy furniture, decoration materials, etc. Most big cities have one-stop shopping. Some people suggested that the city government make a plan so that all those selling building materials would gather together to form a centralized industry. Others suggested setting up a supermarket and allowing all these small businesses to move in. These words made Datu's mind active. If he could collect rent, then this matter could be solved. After inspecting the whole city, he started to invest, and after understanding it, he chose to join Red Star Matzel Line. Officially opened in 2014. It was also this year that Datu became the richest man in the city with a net worth of 3 billion, standing at the pinnacle of his life. Many people in the city persuaded him to go into real estate, and even several leading real estate companies in the country resigned. People at the vice president level have come to see him. It's a pity that Datu is too conservative. His conservativeness makes his son feel angry, and he feels quite frustrated that he is angry at him and admires his good luck. Datu has 2 children. The eldest son was born in 1993. He got married in the beginning of spring in 1993 and gave birth to a son in the winter solstice, so he named the eldest son Dongji. In 1998, he gave birth to a little girl, but there were no more children due to family planning. Zhang Dongji studied well, and his score in the college entrance examination reached the first-tier level. Datu thought about going to a university in China. It was a mess, and there were not many people outside. However, 2011 was the time when studying abroad was popular, and there were many families around him. They all let the children out. In addition, Lu Feng came back to pay homage to his ancestors during the Qingming festival this year, and it was mentioned that Duo was at Harvard, so Datu agreed that he should go out. He chose among many universities and finally chose the University of Melbourne. Zhang Dongji, who went abroad, saw a different world. Because of the circle, globalization and international perspective were the norm. I used to think that his father's business was big, but now I realized that he was just a local rich man, doing all kinds of things. The safest business is to collect rent on the ground. During this period, Zhang Dongji also met Lu Feng. Lu Feng gave him a few words of encouragement and gave him a $100,000 red envelope for the meeting. In 2015, Zhang Dongji graduated with a bachelor's degree. He did not plan to continue his graduate studies, but planned to go home and start a business. Before he came back, he had communicated with Datu on the phone. Zhang Dongji looked down upon Datu's business model. According to in his words, his father was engaged in Qing dynasty business. He also compared Datu and Lu Feng. They were both born in the 1990s. The gap between the two sides was really huge. With this belief and sense of superiority, the first thing Zhang Dongji did when he returned to China was to empty out his family's funds and go to the capital with 70 million. He focused on the food delivery market. Currently, Meituan, ele.me and Baidu Weimai are at war with each other, but there are still many niche software participating. Now there are only two ideas for building a food delivery platform, either to attract more users and finally sell to these three companies at a high price, or to attract more investment to become the fourth company. What Zhang Dongji wants to do is to become the fourth company. The software will be launched in half a year and will be opened in several big cities. Various subsidies, rider recruitment, and merchants will be settled. There will be discounts in all aspects, coupled with advertising bombardment and local promotion. By October alone, the 70 million had been almost burned. He couldn't imagine how fierce the food delivery platform market is now. The fierce battle between big platforms and the daily capital consumption start from tens of millions. Zhang Dongji felt that he would not be able to last until the end of the year if he continued like this. He immediately looked for investors and wanted to raise the first round of financing. Then he called his father and asked him to raise some more funds. On the phone, Zhang Dongji talked about the current food delivery platform. The fierce battle situation, but he is very sure that as long as he survives this period, the future will be very good. After all these years, Datu is already 50 years old, but he still believes in the truth that money will disappear wherever it comes from. Datu doesn't want to give this money. He doesn't know much about money-burning wars, financial leverage, and internet thinking. But Datu is afraid that his son will complain that he doesn't support him. According to Datu, he has too much money and he doesn't understand it at all. So much money is needed. Because the business of the building materials mall was average and the annual rent collection was lower than expected, Datu sold the two-story building materials mall, sold and borrowed it, and got 300 million, which he gave to Zhang Dongji. After getting the funds, Zhang Dongji made rapid progress. In the first half of 2016, he achieved outstanding results in many cities, and the number of users exceeded 3 million. Officially, because of his achievements, he entered the eyes of the top three companies. The strangulation officially began. In 2016, food delivery platforms entered a stage of fierce competition. It was not uncommon to order a table of food for $1. In just 1 month, Zhang Dongji couldn't bear it anymore. He wanted to call his father, but he didn't know. How long will it take to burn money? If these three parties are jealous, even if they fill up Datu's entire wealth, it may not be enough to fill the gap between his teeth. In desperation, Zhang Dongji thought of Lu Feng. Contacted Lu Feng through Datu, hoping to invest some money. Lu Feng agreed and sent a team there. After research, a report was produced. Lu Feng and Zhang Fengxia felt helpless after reading it. His customer acquisition cost is too high, and the product is too simple, and users stay for too long. Apart from being cheap, there is no bright spot for users to stay. This is not a platform at all, more like a place to collect wool. In the end, Lu Feng invested 30 million and gave him a suggestion to sell the company as soon as possible while there were still many active users. During the Mid-Autumn Festival of 2016, Zhang Dongji couldn't resist anymore, and finally sold the company to Baidu Weimai for a price of 100 million, resulting in a net loss of more than 200 million. Zhang Dongji, who failed to start his own business, was unwilling to give in. Just 1 year later, he targeted another Red Sea market, an online live broadcast platform. This time he did not take all the money from his family, but took 50 million from his family and raised 50 million yuan. Invest tens of millions to start a live broadcast platform. In 2017, the prices of major anchors were rising. In order to quickly gain fame, many anchors were signed at high prices. The early stage operations were pretty good. As the funds bottomed out, capital was needed. Since the profitability of the tipping platform alone was weak, after looking for a round of investments, the other parties were only willing to sign and bet. They were required to go public within 5 years. If the listing was unsuccessful, all investment funds would be refunded and the interest on the funds would be compensated. Zhang Dongji had no choice but to sign. They thought it was not a big problem. But just after receiving an investment of 600 million, the platform anchor gave him a late-night live broadcast, and he was interviewed for rectification on the same day. After more than a year of fierce fighting, Zhang Dongji, who was originally full of confidence, no longer had much confidence. After the heat wave of the live broadcast subsided, only a group of sober people were left alone at the scene. Data could feel that something was not right with his son recently, so he asked his wife to call and ask around. She learned that there was a debt problem of 600 million, and Data sold all the shopping malls and building materials malls in the city center. After the funds were received, Data rushed to the capital, had a good meal with his son, and drank some wine. With the help of the wine, Data looked at his son and said, "Do you know why your dad can go all the way from the 1990s, to this day? Do you know how many people have fallen from the sky in the 30 years from 1990 to now? Why have I always been so stable? Because I am self-aware. This card has 800 million. Don't mess around. I know that I am an ordinary person and you are an ordinary person too. I am just lucky. It's a pity that in your era, you will never have such good luck again." After finishing speaking, Data put the bank card in front of him and then returned to his home in the capital. Latest website.